knowledge in depth will still be the possession of experts, academic scholars, people who really go in some detail into the subject. Information, on the other hand, will be accessible to anybody with access to a phone and the internet.
When you are born as a human being, you carry the debt of being a human by expressing yourself through empathy.
But it's also harvesting the knowledge that those platforms are able to create in this new digital world, and particularly the social media.
We bring this program, JLF Toronto, to you with the idea that collectively we can make a difference. That artists and writers and thinkers and speakers, they look into the past, they consider the present, and they envision a better future for each and every one of us.
On behalf of festival co-directors Namita Gokhale and William Dalrymple and all my colleagues at Teamwork Arts, we welcome you back to another exciting session of JLF Toronto Virtual Festival. Kitchens of Gratitude, Vikas Khanna in conversation with Sanjoy Roy. Michelin star chef Vikas Khanna's latest book, Kitchens of Gratitude, follows the journey of his Feed India initiative, often characterized as one of the world's largest food drives in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. An expedition which began with a simple tweet has provided 40 million meals over 135 cities in India. In conversation with Sanjoy Roy, Vikas Khanna discusses the vision and connection between food, the concept of Seva or service, and belief. Vikas Khanna is an internationally acclaimed Indian-American chef, filmmaker, and author. He's a James Beard nominee and one of the first Indian chefs to be awarded a Michelin star in the US. He's been featured amongst the 10 most influential chefs in the world by Deutsche Welle and Gazette Review. He's the host of MasterChef India, Twist of Taste, and Mega Kitchens on National Geographic. Author of 37 award-winning books, including Utsav, the world's most expensive cookbook, and the creator of documentary series Holy Kitchens and Kitchens of Gratitude. He founded the Museum of Kitchen Arts, which is home to thousands of India's unique kitchen tools and equipment, located at his alma mater, WGSHA, Manipal, India. His restaurants, Kinara and Ellora in Dubai, are rated as favorite Indian restaurants by Condé Nast. His initiative, Feed India, served more than 51 million meals during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Last Color marks Khanna's debut as a film writer and director, which was eligible for the Oscars for Best Feature 2020. Sanjoy Roy, an entrepreneur of the arts, is the managing director of Teamwork Arts, which produces over 33 highly acclaimed performing arts, visual arts, and literary festivals in 40 cities across the world, including the iconic annual Jaipur Literature Festival and the international editions of JLF and the launched during lockdown digital JLF Brave New World series. He's a founder, trustee of Salaam Baalak Trust, providing support services for street and working children in Delhi. Sanjoy works closely with various industry bodies and the government on policy issues in the cultural sector in India and has lectured and collaborated with leading international universities. He's the co-chair of the FICCI Creative Industries Committee. Ladies and gentlemen, we now present Kitchens of Gratitude. Vikas Khanna in conversation with Sanjoy Roy. Over to you, Sanjoy.
Vikas Khanna, it's absolute pleasure to have you back on the JLF platform. I wish we could have done this live as we did last time when you visited us at the Jaipur Literature Festival. Sadly, we're sitting in Delhi, you're sitting in New York, I think, but all the same, a warm welcome and many congratulations for the incredible work and effort that you did with your colleagues during lockdown and of course during COVID. So welcome and thank you so much for joining us.
A pleasure, Sanjoy. I wish I could be there in person too. That has a different energy. It
absolutely has a different energy, and that's what I want to start with, because your energy has been so infectious. You reached out to people, and much of this stems from your own sense of empathy. And if you can set the stage for our audiences, some of this may well be known to many people, but you as a child yourself started off with a handicap. And apart from that, there have been many occasions where you felt that there was a situation which was against you, and that created the sense of empathy, perhaps, that made you what you are today. But tell us about the formative years and what had happened and how you got over the challenge, and of course, the influence of your grandmother and your mother.
So a lot of people who work with me, we have almost like 40 people in the team, they will tell you that I'm actually the laziest person in the world, to the point when I'm not challenged. I take everything very casually. I'm very grateful to what I have, but till I'm challenged, I don't feel that I need to work hard. I don't know why. I think it's a childhood, what you rightly pointed. It could be to my basic childhood disability, which gave me not the vision, but gave me the force that I need to do better than other kids. Because I couldn't run, I couldn't play sports, I couldn't do anything till I was 13. I also think that power is based, most of this attitude comes from the childhood, from the formative years, when I couldn't be like other kids and I was desperate to be like other kids. And then my mother said, you don't have to be like other kids, you're much better than them. So I just think that she had put it in my mind that I don't have to be a clone, which I think from the very childhood was ingrained in my head. I think she was just trying to make me feel better, because I was happy the way the state the God gave me in. It's a mother who actually pushed me, and most of my childhood was wearing those very ugly shoes and braces, but I was okay. I was even happy in that situation till I got challenged by the other kids. ये तो skeleton है, ये तो polio है, इसको तो, and all those things. That made me push myself so much further that I used all my energy of that pain or being an outcast to cooking. And my biggest achievement used to be at that time making a roti, round roti. And I thought that is the big achievement, I'm 8-10 years old and see what I can do. You guys can't do it. And I think that was great. It helped me in certain ways. And I think I applied the same principles, which I still do, to living in New York and to be creating works which have never been ever thought of before, and to be creating things. I think that's very important to me. And I hope, Sanjoy, that I stay inspired to create new paths for myself when I feel that all the doors are being shut down on me.
We'll come to the inspiration in a second. I want to go back to something that you attributed to your mother when she was asked, ye ladka kabhi daudega nahi, or your son will never run. And she said, why should he run when he can fly?
I still make fun of my mom on that statement, because I thought that statement didn't make any sense now. But it did make sense to me at that time. And most of my dreams used to be that I'm flying over the school and all the kids are below me. I used to dream about that. But she said that, what you feel that you are left behind, you're actually not left behind. You're becoming stronger for the race. And for me, that was very important. It was very important that she continued to push me in that level. But Sanjoy, I also think that, mothers have a sixth sense of the child. She knows which hand of the child is weaker. So she's always there to hold it and support it. Sometimes without the child knowing about it.
Totally. And I think you need to become a parent to be able to understand that. I mean, even, when we are kids, we do all sorts of things, never realizing the consequences on the parents till you become a parent and you're like, whoa, is that what my parents felt? Totally. But because going back to, flying over other kids, you've always been steeped in spirituality. I mean, you used to go to the langar in Harbinder Sahib, in Amritsar, at the Golden Temple, which is where you have attributed your whole sense of Seva from.
So born and raised in Amritsar, I think there's such an influence of Sikh culture, especially Golden Temple. So if you've been to the Golden Temple and you see the whole prep area which is outside, it is all changed. When we were kids, it was very different. But the thing is, when you go there, you disappear into this mass volume of people whose only focus is unity and unifying themselves for something higher in purpose. At the time, it was very amazing for me because I could be just one of them and I was not a different child in the classroom. But understanding that how this whole institution of langar has come to power, from Goindwal Sahib ji to, all those things what you hear, Sacha Sauda and everything. And then you realize that, you are not just peeling those garlic or creating or slicing coconut. You are actually becoming a part of a massive heritage which comes in a form of history. You are being a part of that continuity. That thing has always struck in my mind very deeply, that even when I'm opening a new restaurant, I always think about that this is not just me individually. This is a part of a massive chain of continuity which has stayed alive, and we are just a small link to the next generation. So many people say that, why do you often mention it? I said, I mention it for the next generation. Our generation there was a very strong prejudice against our generation when we were growing up about cooking and kitchens. Like, even the family would be very ashamed to tell others. But I hope that stigma has been faded out over the last few years of our careers. But I think Golden Temple gave us something which I'm always going to use the word equality. It made us all equal at one stage, that we were just a small link to the next generation.
The other influence, you're talking about breaking stereotype molds. Pretty early in your life, you started figuring out how to serve a whole bunch of kitty party ladies making chola bhature and 3 kinds of cholas: pink chola, regular gharwali chola, and the kala chola. And you were serving them. In many ways, what you did later, or what you've done in more recent times outside of the fancy kitchen space, that's also been an influence, right?
What they say that a child, only the massive development of the brain is until they are 6 or 8, which is absolutely true. We have to be careful of what message we give to our children at that age. My message was given to me by my grandmom. I was very young when I was told to write an essay on mother. And I refused to copy everyone's essay, which I remembered. My mother's name is Vikas Khanna. She's a very good mother. She helps me do my homework. She dresses me up for the school. I remember that essay. But Sanjoy, I decided to write a different essay, which was for my mother. And I said that, the most important part of growing up is a mother. And I was thinking about all species of mankind and the animal kingdom, that the kids cannot survive without the mother. And there will be never next generations on earth. So I wrote something much deeper and everything. And I was thrown out of the classroom. And my grandmother told me, it's okay, as long as you continue to write your own story. And she said that you don't have to copy anyone's story. And that is why I think my career path, my choices, and I failed majority of the times for trying something new. But I still continue to write my own story. And that is why all the words you're using are so important to me even now.
One of the funny things is that you didn't copy the story about your mother, but you certainly did copy your French classes, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I would give credit to a lot of chefs at that stage of my life. That's what I've told you in the beginning, that I'm quite lazy. Who always stigmatized Indian chefs and always said that Indian chefs will never be ready for a Michelin star. And that will always break me and break my heart. Then why are we going to college then, chef? I would always ask them. Why are we studying in colleges and working so hard just to be working under somebody? And they said, yes, that is your job. You need to manage people and restaurants and chefs. but you are exempt from that glory of being called the Michelin star chef. That really broke my heart. And I was 18, 19 years old. And that I didn't take lightly because few things hit me and then I don't take it lightly. And then I work hard that you can't be saying that to me. You can't be stereotyping that just because of my pigmentation and where I come from. And I felt that sometimes I faced more prejudice from our community people than I faced from the outside world.
And the other thing that also broke your heart was when the roof of your banquet hall was torn down by the Amritsar municipality to sort of propel you to go to New York with your brother sort of urging you to leave.
It was a dark night, one of the longest nights. So it was a wedding season. What happens during wedding season is that all the weddings happen at the same time. We have limited space. And my parents were attending a wedding of our relative somewhere. So I was by myself in the banquets. I was in the kitchen. And these guys just won't listen to me. I don't know what the issue was. And they said this construction is all illegal. And right when I'm setting up for a wedding, they started breaking the wall and the ceilings. And that sound still haunts me sometimes. But then it made me understand when something closes for you because God has much bigger plan for you. So I think it was a dark day of my life, and I thought my mom will be very disturbed if I tell her that, I want to move out. And she said that you are not moving out because you're angry or upset. You're moving out to spread yourself. And I think that she put a good perspective in my mind because New York wouldn't be an easy stage. And she was totally right. She said, you're not moving out because you're discontinuing from us in a way, but you're going out to spread us around the world. And nobody took it against me because they understood that I was very broken after that incident. And all the people who actually hear me or watch me, they should feel that there will be times in our lives when everything is against us. Everything. But you got to remember, these are the nights which make you very strong. They lay the foundation of the bigger dreams for you.
And then you come to New York, Vikas, a completely new city, far away as Amritsar can be, as Earth from Mars. And hanging around the park, you get offered to make khana for a cat.
But when you look at the story of immigrants in this country, everybody has gone through a rough start. There's a big cultural difference. The city I also chose New York because the city is very difficult because it's inhuman energy. It's too much of noise. Even if you see right now, even in this penthouse, you still hear the city so loud of the ambulances and the city and the exhaust systems and so much of construction all the time. City is very inhuman and unforgiving. At the same time, the city is also very forgiving and it has no memory. You fail and then you can start fresh and nobody remembers what you failed for, which is also great that there are not much stigmas attached to failure in the city, and that's why it has given birth to some of the greatest writers and authors and business people, because failure was a part of the steps. And New York is going to be the awakening city for most of the people on the planet because it wakes you up of understanding the possibilities. Because most of the greatest people which came here, they were all self-made. They came without anything. So I said, this is the city worth experimenting my life with and understanding that even now, the city still doesn't have love for Indian food. And I know that. But fighting the odds has been our biggest strength.
I'm not going to go into your rise to how you got your Michelin star, because that's been recorded. I'm actually now just going to fast forward to the pandemic, Vikas, where you chose to come back and give so much. Tell us a little bit about the journey and about the book that you've written about your journey.
So the journey started from a spam email. I sign up for a lot of emails of the foundations which are based in New York, and they support India. I get this email and it says that, in the pandemic, it was already April 1st and the lockdown has started. So there's a lot of food shortage in old age homes and orphanages, and many of them which I support. And there was an image which was very difficult for me to watch. It was about elderly people lying on the floor, and it seemed to be a spam email. And I didn't realize at that time. Later, when I shared that email in my work group, and one girl recognized, she thinks she's seen that image before, real emails. And we figured out it was a spam. But by that time, I had already shaken up, and I said it is so true, because a lot of these foundations and a lot of these charities, they don't reserve too much of food in their storages, because everything is moving on a cycle. And because of the pandemic, the cycle had been interrupted. I said there is going to be need where we will need to support India for the shortage. There will be a lot of changes happening because of the shortages. And that is when we started the idea of doing this. So we started working with different partners, just trying to find the phone numbers on internet and trying to call them that we want to buy big godowns of ration. And I thought, it can't be so difficult, because we can buy big storages and we can then divide where we want to supply them to. But we did not understand that part at all. The logistics of that, what I was thinking was totally difficult and different from the reality. The reality was that one of the guys we trusted and we gave him money, and this food has to reach Bangalore, and then he just blocked us from his WhatsApp. And on April 11th, I called my mom. I said, Mom, I'm not going to be doing this. This is very difficult. It's very challenging. You can't hold such a massive operation remotely, and you don't have anybody on the ground. There's no accountability, and people are taking your credit card information and all those things. So it was a difficult thing. I said, Mom, I can't do that. I think my mom woke up on the wrong side of the bed, and she started telling me, she said, you're in your position not because of yourself. You're in a position because of the collective effort of everyone. The entire country has contributed to it. You have taken everybody's cuisine and the work and presented to the world. It was not yours. It was collectively yours. I don't know why she was so upset, and I think she had all the right. And she was watching something on television which was breaking her heart. And she says, my heart is not broken by what's going on in the country. It breaks my heart to see that my son is not standing up for his own country. And that really broke my heart. That really broke my heart. And I told her, Mom, whatever happens, we are going to be supporting this regardless of the scales, regardless of the failures. And since April 11th, 2000, I dedicated every minute of my time in that year. We put all the projects on back burners. Last year was the only year I didn't release a single book, because of my focus was just supporting India at that point. And I'm proud that we've served more than 65 million meals. And it was only possible because of my mom rebooting my entire moral compass and telling me that I'd rather have my son fail, but I want my son to try. That really struck with me. That really struck with me.
I'm going to come back to the challenge of feeding 65 million kids in a second, Vikas. I remember at Salaam Baalak Trust, which is one of the organizations that I support, we were serving about 1,500 meals a day to our street kids and to the people. It was quite a challenge with the lockdown. But one of the things that is also amazing about your story is the story that happened during the riots in 1992 in Bombay, where you were given shelter when you went to look for your brother in Ghatkopar. Tell us a little bit about that and how that shaped you and the reflection of that to something that's happened so many decades later.
So I was working for Sea Rock Sheraton. I was a trainee, and I was working in the room service kitchen. So you're a trainee. We were short staffed, so we will cook the food, or some senior will cook the food, and we'll go and deliver in the rooms. And I go to one of the rooms, and the girl tells me that the lady, she tells me that the Ghatkopar is burning, and that is the only thing I heard. I go down, I tell the manager I'm going to go. And people do not know what happens during riots is that when hotels go under lockdown, the staff is not allowed to leave and the new staff cannot come in because we have a full-fledged occupancy which has to be served. So they can't allow the staff to leave. So everybody's sleeping in the locker rooms, showering there, getting ready, going up to the room services again and again. But the word Ghatkopar is burning, I did not understand because this was my first time in a big city. And I didn't understand what do you mean by Ghatkopar is burning. I had no idea how big the Ghatkopar is. And I told them, these things you got to speak to the management trainee program. So I spoke to them and they said, if you leave now, because I was crying and I was really throwing tantrums at my brothers, something had happened to my elder brother. And they said, if you leave now, you will not be given your certificate of training in this hotel. Which is a very difficult thing for a trainee because our jobs are based on our training record. Because when we go for campus interviews, those are very important credentials which you get. I said, that's fine. You don't have to give me. I left the hotel in the uniform. And this is the trainee's uniform. Just to let everyone know that this trainee uniform used to be at that time, black pants, black shoes, white shirt and a bow tie. But I also had an apron because they used to make us help in the kitchen at that time. And there was a big mob and riots happening and this uncle, he saved me and he took me in the by lanes in a car. And they take me to his house and then he asked me later, what's your name? I said, Vikas Khanna. He says, you're Hindu, and his wife was there. He said, I still remember, I don't know how memory works like this. I remember when she said, Hamara beta hi hai ye. Andar aaja, bolna mat. So there was a small place, there are two daughters, and the son-in-law was also there. And it was and I stayed in the house very silently, and they wanted the mobs to calm down. And then their son-in-law, he said, I'll drop you to Ghatkopar because he was going on that side. But eating from her hands and, eating in that house was a blessing for me. At how simple India is, how simple people think. At the same time, there's such a complexity to all the layers. But how simple somebody takes lightly, makes somebody their son. It has always stuck with me. I do talk about that in the new book, that how it made me feel that though they weren't, you can't call them by the superficial world's point of view as affluent, but they were richer than most of the people I know in my world. And I know a lot of people. So I always benchmark people with how rich they are. Ammi's still there, but I call him Abu. He's not there anymore. And the family's done okay. And sorry, I still hear too much of sounds when I talk about that.
So because humanity, one of the things that's sort of really been part of your journey has been the sense of humanity, which has always got you to do the next thing. During this feeding so many millions of people in the lockdown, tell us some of the stories, some of these human stories that you encountered, and how that sort of drove you to feed more and more and continue. I remember when the lockdown happened, one of our street kids said, Bhaiya, ये लक्ष्मण रेखा, तो हमारा लक्ष्मण रेखा कौन सी है? जहाँ पे हम फुटपाथ पे सोते हैं, or what is the line that we can't cross during lockdown? Is it the place that we sleep on the footpath? And they were very puzzled as to what were they supposed to do. And I know that you came across many such cases, over that entire period of a year that you served so many people. Tell us some of those stories.
So one of the very big challenges we faced was when the trains started operating and the migrant workers were taken to the villages. And we all remember watching this video of a little child, a toddler, trying to wake up his mother. And I saw that it was early morning in New York when I saw that footage. And it took us almost 5.5, 6 hours that we had organized food for the train stations. And we had about, I think, 60,000 meals. 60,000 meals in 5.5 hours. And it was late night in India at that time. And it was so challenging, I can't tell you. But the only thing which would work for us will be puris, achar, bananas. And you can see that big army of CRPF and NDRF are taking all these foods. And there was a makeshift kitchen which was made in maybe 2 hours. But at that time, I had already developed a massive infrastructure with petrol pumps. We used to call them not fuel stations, food stations, which was amazing that we had the capability at that time to serve so many people because we had the base. But that video broke my heart so deeply. And I think throughout this process, we were very alert, and we were also being very proactive in how we can support. We also had massive team from NDRF, that's National Disaster Response Force, who were actually supporting us at that time. And they would tell us, Chef, soon there's going to be need of food here. The migrant workers are coming back to the villages. People did not know that there'll be quarantine centers, and they're not just going directly to the villages. So we got the information before anyone, and that's why we were prepared. So we had arranged for big pots, and the khichdi was the standard recipe which I did in New York. So that khichdi stays well for 3 days, because we realized that if you put dal, and dal has protein, it spoils too fast. Puri had a sustainable life for at least 2 days. So we were doing things on that scale because we said, okay. And then I also think that people like Paytm, Global Fund for Widows, we had some massive partners like India Gate, Dawat Rice. Everybody kept joining me because of the accountability fact. Because they saw that every single day I give a report of what's happening. And people said, oh my God, he doesn't have to do that for every minute by minute report. I think because of that, Sanjoy, I feel that is the reason that we were so successful in doing this operation, because it kept joining more and more hands. But that was a big victory. Leprosy Center was a big victory because the virus had infected our minds more than anything else at that time. And people were not going to these vulnerable people which they used to support, especially people, there were colonies of leprosy people who had leprosy. And I said that should be one of our most important points right now. And we did that. Also sex workers. People didn't know that how much we were working with sex workers in Delhi, Bombay and Kolkata. And you understand that how their livelihood was hit by that time. And many taboo subjects which people were not even ready to listen to me, we were totally on ground. I think biggest achievement in the whole process was sanitary pads. We distributed more than 3 million sanitary pads in this whole process. And those things seem to be very what could be a big deal about it? But when you're trying to do operations at that time, they were a big deal. getting things organized in the lockdown was a big deal.
Amazing. I mean, more strength to you, and may more people listen to your story and be inspired. One of the fascinating things about religion, Vikas, is that food has been very much part of every religion.
Absolutely.
Whether it's the religions of the book, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, or Hinduism, Buddhism, everything, there's always a part, food has been pretty much part of it. Tell us how that sort of impacted you, because in many different ways, you are a very spiritual person. I don't know whether you're a religious person, but you're certainly a very spiritual person. And the second question to this is that I know that your favorite food, when asked, has always been dal, chawal, khichdi. And khichdi is always something that's, sparked in you that sense of home, also the sense of langar.
If you see, our big event of Feed India was celebrating Eid in Mumbai at Haji Ali. We could find a way to create a stage for more than 200,000 meals. So what we did was, thanks to the people at Haji Ali who were so generous in supporting us, that they gave us tables outside the Haji Ali, and then I started tweeting about it. That we are celebrating Eid. On this Eid, may there be abundance in everyone's home, food and hope. And love goes without saying. This was my statement. And sorry, I think we have the president in New York today. So what happened was that my sensibility of Eid comes from my family in Mumbai. And I told Ammi, itna khana lagega ki aapke ghar tak pahunch jayega. I didn't know, I was just jokingly saying it, which was true, that there was enough food which could be laid from Haji Ali to Khar. And brands came on board, people were so generous who came on board, and they said, this is an amazing idea. Eid ke upar, in the lockdown, when people are finding ways to celebrate in this pain, and we have something so magnificent, which I didn't arrange it, I initiated it. But there were too many people who were coming forward to arrange it.
Hatred. I mean, much of our lives, whether it's you all in the United States today or we in India, or most parts of the world, including in Afghanistan, hatred seems to be overwhelming everybody and everything. Is food and love and seva one way forward to break through this and to show empathy and compassion?
Hasn't it always been? When you read the Sikh scriptures, they were having wars in the morning. In the night, they will be feeding their enemies. And this is a very important unifying force. Food is and food is one of the highest form of secularism and democracy. You don't know who's growing your food, who's bringing it to you, who's cooking it for you, and who actually brings it to your table, and who actually cleans after you've eaten. So food is one of the highest form of humanity. And of course, I live in this city which I feel, I'm not going to say use the word hate, but I don't find any other word. I live in the city full of hate. Sometimes I'm not going to be playing a victim card. I don't care. There is so much of hate, and we've seen it with the last president, what happened in the country, that hate became very vocal. And of course, you understand that there's a prejudice, there's hate, there's also strong jealousy when you, as an artist, you rise in this country. You have more people forcing you and pushing you down. So the amount of resilience some mornings I need is unmatched. At that time, also feel that, listen, I'm cooking at the restaurants, caterings, books, movies, which are all unifying forces. The source can't be hate. So I have to sometimes shift myself, because what you said is totally right, that our way forward is food which makes us humble and makes us understand that that's the only unifying force we have. In the modern day world or in the ancient world, of course we understand that the foods are becoming more private now. And I was reading this whole text about it, how as earlier times we had bigger pots and we have bigger hearts, and now everything is reducing to individual levels, and how our hearts are closing. But then you have these Sikh teachings or teachings from Islam or Buddhism or Hinduism, which tell us that your greatest form of sharing to the world is making sure that no one is hungry. I think it's commendable that we still are talking about that. We're not totally disappeared in darkness.
Totally. And I know our time is run out. So quick last question, because I remember you saying in an interview कि मुझे अंग्रेजी नहीं आता ठीक से. I didn't know how to read or write English properly or speak properly. Yet every year, today you churn out a bestseller, a new book around food. Does food have a language? And if so, in your mind, what is the language of food? Love?
When I was little younger, like 15, 20 years ago, I would always say, food has no language. Food doesn't have language. Food is food. But now I've changed my opinion. Food has a language. Otherwise, you can't communicate with a lot of people. Once they eat, that food has to speak. But before that, I need to bring them on my tables to fill up the places. Should be able to communicate. And I've gone through my whole struggle of being able to listen carefully and speak carefully using the right words, which doesn't happen very often. But I do believe that food has its own language of its own. But we need alphabets which we borrow from other languages to communicate. Somehow it's a very dark world where our level of intellect and our imagination is based on how well we speak English, which is not even my native language. It's my third language. But my intelligence would always be judged on how well I speak English. And I had to jump that barrier because I had to communicate food. And I said, guys, I'm going to write better than you. And even if I speak in a different accent, I'll still try to speak more eloquently than you, because I'm expressing a much bigger purpose, and that's food.
Beautifully expressed, more than eloquent. I do hope that all of the Washington Post reporters will be at your table, where you'll be able to demonstrate more than one spice, and that India is not just about curry. Vikas Khanna, on behalf of all of my colleagues at JLF Toronto, thank you so much. May you continue to be so empathetic. May your humanity shine even beyond the four walls of your new restaurant. Best wishes. And may your book continue to sell and be on that #1 bestseller list. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Vikas and Sanjoy, for that beautiful conversation. More power to you, Vikas, and we wish you all the very best for your new book. Thank you all for watching and being such a great audience. Thank you for supporting the festival. Once again, we'd also like to thank all our partners for their support towards JLF Toronto 2021 Virtual Festival. We hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
It has been a great pleasure to have you join us at JLF Toronto this weekend, one of empowering conversations and inspirational poetry readings. We do hope you enjoyed the festival as much as we did in presenting it to you. On behalf of Teamwork Arts and JLF Toronto, thank you for watching. And our heartfelt thanks to our partners, supporters, and friends of the festival. We really could not have done this without you. We look forward to seeing you all in 2022.
Knowledge in depth will still be the possession of experts, of academic scholars, people who really go in in some detail into a subject. Information, on the other hand, will be accessible to anybody with access to a phone and the internet.
When you are born as a human being, you carry the debt of being a human by expressing yourself through empathy.
But it's also harvesting the knowledge that those platforms are able to create in this new digital world, and particularly the social media.
We bring this program, JLF Toronto, to you with the idea that collectively we can make a difference. That artists and writers and thinkers and speakers, they look into the past, they consider the present, and they envision a better future for each and every one of us.